Okay. Right, so we have got to get second quadrant, nee? En in die tweede kwadrant, jy gaan by heel eerste begin leer te sê, we can't just say like theta is equal to 180 minus. I've got to say that full bracket, the x minus 25 is equal to, en omdat dit in die tweede kwadrant is, gaan ek sê 180 minus my verwysingshoekie van 48,19. So 180 minus because it's second quadrant, reference angle, and then remember we ended just now by saying, or we began by saying that restriction, I've got to substitute the value there for n, nee? En om plek te maak vir dit sê ek plus n maal, how much? 360. Why 360 again? Because the period of a cost graph is 360. So whenever it is sine or cos, I will have 360. If it's tan, what do we have? 180. Okay, right. Dan, kom ons gaan vereenvoudig. X minus 25, you can leave out the brackets now. 180 minus that, waar is ek nou met hom? Ek gaan nou. Kan ek hom maar sommer in een doen? Oorvat ook. Is that alright with you guys? Okay, dan doen ek eerder dit, want dan spaar ek spasie. Ek is ook 'n bietjie in my ding is hier onder. Okay, so 180 minus the 48.19 is going to give you 131,81, and then that minus 25, if I take it over, it becomes plus 25, and dit is ons kom by 156. 156. 81 plus n times 360. Ons julle reg? Everyone find how we got there? Okay, then we said cost would also be negative in the third quadrant. Kom ek sit hom net vir jou nou in 'n kleur. Kan ek by jou onder indruk of moet ek volgende bladsy? Jy moet hom hier heel aan die begin hê. En is 'n element van dit. Okay. Kan ek die volgende kwadrant? Can I do that on the next page? Right. So we said also quadrant 3. Met andere x minus 25 is equal to, and quadrant 3 will be 180 plus, and then my reference angle, a little bit of 48,19. En dan weer plus n maal 360. Okay, so if I simplify that, 180 plus the 48.19 will give me 228,19, en dan vat ek nog die 25 oor, so plus 25 to that is going to give me 253,19 plus n times 360. Okay, so those are my two quadrants, nee? Nou wil ek gaan kyk na my beperking. Restriction here said that it must be, my x value must be anything between negative 360 and positive 360, nee? Okay, so dan gaan ons gaan sê, x is gelyk aan. So far I've only got equations, nee? Okay, so let's work with the quadrant 2 now. Kan ek gou terugskiep soontoe? So ons het gesê 156.81 plus n times 360. So kom ons gaan stel gou in. As jy sê 0, as daai mos nou null is, do I have to write how I substituted in? You guys fine with that? Okay, if I substitute in 0, then 0 times 360 is net 360. Nee, so hy gaan bly 156,81. Nee, if I substitute in, that's 1. Hoekom bly jy vir my dit gee? Net so kyk, daar sy. Then it is going to give me, ek gaan nou, kan ek maar sê n. So gou kyk by die voorbeeld, hoekom kry jy daar minus? Okay, come on, doesn't matter. Okay, it could also be 516,81, nee, if n is 1. If n is 2, hallo, slaap julle wakker? Kyk gou. Dankie. Okay, so hy mag nie daar wees nie. Nee? Okay, so I substituted 0 and I substituted 1. 1 was already out of bounds, so, okay, gaan nie verder sit nie. Let's check negative numbers. Okay, so let's check minus 1. That gives me minus 203,19. Is that still part of, or within my restriction? Yes. So minus 200. Okay, if I use minus 2, dan kry ek minus 563. So that's outside the restriction. Nee. Okay, so dit was net vir kwadrant 2. Now let's look at quadrant 3. At quadrant 3 we had 253.19. So if n is 0, then you will have 253,19. And is that within my restriction? Yes. Okay, so 253. Okay, if I say 1, if n is 1 there, dan gee dit my 600 net, so that's outside the restriction. Okay, so let's go to minus 1. That again, that gives me minus 106,81 en dit is binne my beperking. So minus 106,81. Okay, if I substitute minus 2, dan gee dit my minus 466 en dis weer buite my beperking. Okay, so those would be the options that are true. Ek net double check of something let, of sê daai tweekies vir die negatiewe hoeke. And you've got that one and this one, yeah. Okay, any questions? Right. Can you guys try one on your own? Gaan dit vir enetjie self probeer? Goed. I'm giving you 4 sin x, cos x. Oh, maar nou hier is nou weer iets anders by, so wag gou. And it must be between minus 180 and 360. Okay. Nou, ek dink hierdie enetjie gaan ek net gou die eerste stuk saam met jou doen en dan gaan ek jou los, né? Because now we've got sin x and cos x. What? All right. So, we said before we can do anything, we've got to figure out our reference angle, né? Okay? So, that 4 sin x cos x is equal to square root 3. We've got to change that. So, what would be the first thing that you guys are going to do? I can't. Yes, I can take the 4 over, then it would be sin x cos x would be square root 3 over 4. But then what? Still stuck. Nee. Aha. Daar sy. Okay. Or it's the same as saying 2 times 2 sin x cos x. Nee. Well done. Okay, good. So now that will be 2. And what is 2 sin x cos x? Good. Sin 2x. En nou kan ek daai 2 oorvat. So then I'm going to say sin 2x will be square root 3 over 2. Nee? Is julle fine met dit? Okay, so now I can see sine is positive, so I can determine my quadrants, and I can get my reference angle. Nee, please remember, kyk gou-gou, want van hier af gaan ek gou-gou los om self te probeer. Just like we had the bracket just now. Nee? The bracket, we only took that 25 over once we've written our whole general equation. Nee? Dieselfde met hierdie 2x. Jy hou vir hom 2x tot heel aan die einde. And then when I divide, then when I take that 2 over, it means I've got to divide every single thing by 2. Okay. Goed. Kry net gou eers vir my die general equation for both those quadrants. Okay? Okay, quick. Doen gou. Morgan, ek wil net gou sê, jy het my so mooi beloof begin van hierdie kwartaal, né? Ja, maar tussendeur is jy besig met allerlei strooi, né? So jy is glad nie besig om te fokus nie. En dit gaan weer vir jou in die gat byt. Ja? We took out 2 to make that an identity. Just said sin and cos. I don't want to have 2 different. So therefore, I just would become 2 times 2 sin x cos x. 2 sin x cos x. That is a double A. So that became sin 2x. Hey, are you fine with that? It was just an identity. And then from there I could take the 2 over. Okay. Yeah, cos is negative, and that's how I use it goes to be because cos is only positive and positive condensate. Okay. So that we only use right at the end. So don't worry about that for now. Once we have our general equation, then we determine our angles according to that. That's just a restriction. Okay? Okay, that's what I'm doing. To see a reference analysis. So we've been putting on 2. So 2x is equal to 60 plus n times 360. Jy moet hom daar invul, né? Het ek nie. Wat gaan dit? Oh. Yeah. Okay, so you have to have that, okay, and then no, this is what we're going to end with because I've got to divide that and I've got to divide the 360. So this will become 30 plus n times 180. I can't divide by 2. Yes, so I'm technically dividing everything by 2. Okay, and then same thing here. You must have the plus n times 360, and that will become 120 plus n times 360, and then 60 plus n times 180. Then how do you do this? Okay, so now you've got, so I'm working with that, right? Okay, just correct it, right? So I'm working with that and with this. So now, I substitute n values for n. So if n is minus 2, check if it falls within that restriction. If it does, we write it down. Then if n is minus 1, what do you know what n is? No, we usually start with n is minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2. We don't really go further than that. It depends on what your restriction is. Okay. Wait. First quadrant is between 0 and 90. No. So technically it will only be the reference angle. So 2x is equal to 60 and then plus n times 360. Yes. Is julle girlies klaar met so lekker gesels? Okay, can we go ahead with this one? Okay, so first things first, I'd have to get my reference angle. So your reference angle will be 60 degrees. No. Okay, now you also see that sign is positive. Waar sin positief? In kwadrant 1 en kwadrant 2. Okay, so I know that I'm going to work with quadrant 1. In quadrant 1, I'm going to say 2x is equal to, now remember, first quadrant, eerste kwadrant is mos, jou hoekies is tussen 0 en 90. Nee. So it's not 180 minus that angle or 180 plus, it will just be the reference angle. Nee. So just 60, en ek kan nie net dit nie, jy moet sê plus n maal 360. Why 360 again? Because that's the period of sine. Nee? Okay. Okay, now we've got to divide by 2. So just now I said, remember that when we divide, it means I've got to divide everything. So 60 divided by 2 will give me 30 plus n times 180. Want 360 moet ek ook gedeel deur 2. You guys good with that? Okay, and that's as far as I go with quadrant 1. Dan gaan kyk ons gou ook na kwadrant 2. Over there, because it's quadrant 2, it would be 180 minus reference angle of 60 plus n times 360. So met ander woorde 2x is gelyk aan 120 plus n times 360. Nee, but now I still got to get rid of that 2 in front. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So x is equal to 60 plus n times 180. En sien jy dit lyk dieselfde? Nee, same thing. Nou wil ek net double check as ek reg met alles. Excuse, that was 30 here and 60, so it's not the same. Yeah. Okay, are we good? Okay, now we've got to get what would the values of x be. Now, hoe gaan kry ons nou weer dit? I am going to, over here where I have n, and over there where I have n, I'm going to substitute n, minus 2, or minus 1, or 0, of 1, of 2. Nee, En dan jy hou aan met die volgende getalletjie instel, totdat ek sien ek is buite my beperking. My restriction meaning that. Is julle by? Good, okay, so kom ons kyk gou-gou. As ek dan nou die heel eerste enetjie gaan vat, kan ek dit hier langs die kant, of moet ek weer volgende bladsy? Is dit okay if I write it here on the side? Okay. As ons net gou-gou na die enetjie gaan kyk. Nice? Let's start with minus 2. Then I would have 30 plus minus 2 times 180. And that gives me minus 330. So this way buite my beperking. Okay, so let's start with minus 1 then. If I use that, I get minus 150. Dit lê binne my beperking, né? So hy gaan definitief 'n opsie wees. Okay. As n dan nou 0 is, ek is nog steeds hier so, né? As n 0 is, then I'd have, ja? Oh, excuse. Thank you. If n was 0, then my x would just be 30. And if n was 1, then I would have 210. Dis ook nog steeds binne my beperking. Ek skryf nou baie verkeerd om so trein te ry hierso, maar net om gou spasie te spaar. Okay, if n is 2, then I would get 390. Nou sien jy, nou begin ek buite my beperking. Nee. Okay, so we're done with that one. Now we're going to go look at this one. Okay, so let's substitute in the n values there. Okay, so sê nou maar, if I substitute in n is minus 2, dan kry ek minus 300. That's way out of my restriction. If I substitute in minus 1, I get minus 120. Dis binne by beperking. So minus 120. If I substitute in 0, I'm going to get just 60. En as ek gaan instel 1, gaan ek kry 240. Dis ook nog binne my beperking. En as ek instel 2, dan kry ek 420 en dit is buite my beperking. Okay, so that would be all the options that x could actually have been. Okay. Ons kyk gou wat is alles. X is 30, kom met ons. 60, 30, 60 to 40. Minus 150 we've got. And minus 120 we've got. Waar is die 210? Het ek hom nou misgelees? Ja, hy moet al wees. Terug. Okay, any questions? Okay, en ons nog enetjie doen? Sorry? Ek gaan huiswerk gee, maar nou... Okay, have a look at your textbook on page 104. Want daar's net gou nog 2 opsies wat ek wil hê jy moet net gou sien. Want ons het nou baie basic begin. Have a look at example 3. There they're giving you sin 3x cos x minus cos 3x sin x. Kan jy sien dis weer 'n saamgestelde hoek? Do you guys see that? So they're changing that. You saw sin cos, cos sin. So dis wie jy geweet het, hy moet raak sin 3x minus 3. So that was a compound angle. Do you guys see that? Okay, that's the only funny thing there. Okay, look at example 4. There they're giving us cos 2x over cos 50 minus sin 2x over cos 40. Goed, nou kyk gou daar. What they did is they multiplied with a common denominator. Nee? They made the common denominator cos 40, cos 50. So dan kry hulle bo cos 2x maal cos 40 minus sin 2x times cos 50. Still equal to 0. Does everyone understand that step? You guys sure? Okay, then once you get there, you'll see cos, sine, cos. Right? And for that to be a compound angle, I need cos, sine, sine. So that cos 50, they just changed to a sine 40, because then I would have my nice compound angle. So then they change it to cos 2x plus 40. And then from there on, again, it's straightforward. Okay, so sometimes you just have a few added steps in the beginning. So kyk mooi uit vir dit. Is julle alright? Okay, so julle huiswerk. Exercise 6. That is on page 105. En jy gaan vir my doen 1.2, 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, 1.9. Okay. Is julle reg? Okay, that is it. You guys can get started on that.